Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the American Football, Our Laces Out podcast. I used all of my podcasting superpowers and I managed to get as a guest this week. Unfortunately, that meant that my podcasting powers ran out and I had to do the stats this week. So excuse the stats, I guess is what I'm saying there. I tried, I really did. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Big one there, share the podcast around. If you have an NFL fan in your life, send this podcast their way. They'll definitely thank you for it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
I believe it's me to start. And obviously, what better place to start than by me trying to apparently bend my neck into
I was like, he's limbering up. This is going to be an absolute corker of a podcast. Because he's like, you know.
Because I'm limbering up.
He's got the yoga mat out. He's all limber. And away we go.
Yes, welcome to Bendcast from us here at the CookieCast podcast network. No, obviously, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see three happy, smiling faces staring back at you. But it's not a wrestling podcast. It's not a football podcast. It's an American football podcast. Welcome along to Laces Out, episode 6. Possibly, I believe it's episode 6, as we're at week 5 ahead of us, week 4 behind us, and we had pre-season predictions podcast, so that would make 6. Obviously, I'm joined by regular co-host Mr. Andrew Cook, but making a second guest appearance of the season. Welcome back, Stuart Woodmansey. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm all right. I'm a little bit more sad than I was last time I came on, seeing as the Chargers are now showing their true colours again. So I'm sure we'll get started at some point.
The phrase, well, I was going to say the phrase "Chargers going to charge" applicable, but
Chargers going to run out of charge is probably more appropriate.
Chargers gone flat. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as Mr. Woodmansey has been on the podcast already this season, there will be no season-long predictions, unless he wants to change his season-long predictions, which he says vehemently no to.
Too early.
So that
Too early.
We will jump straight in to week 4's games. Week 4 was the last of the regular season weeks, for a while at least, that has 16 games attached to it, as the byes start from week 5. So 16 games to play for. Myself, Mr. Cook, and last week's guest, Mr. Matthew Moore, with the predictions. In third place, with 7 of 16 predictions correct, it's the guest, Mr. Matthew Moore. Matt only got the Cowboys to beat the Giants, the Bengals to beat the Panthers, the Vikings to beat the Packers, the Texans to beat the Jags, the 49ers to beat the Patriots, the Chiefs to beat the Chargers, and the Lions to beat the Seahawks. All the other teams let him down. Which means, for the second week in a row, with 8 of 16 selections correct, we have a joint tie again by myself and Mr. Cook, even though we had selected different games along the way. So, my 8 correct. I had the Cowboys over the Giants, the Falcons over the Saints, the Bengals over the Panthers, the Vikings over the Packers, the Texans over the Jags, the 49ers over the Patriots, the Chiefs over the Chargers, and the Lions over the Seahawks, whereas Mr. Cook had Cowboys over Giants, Bengals over Panthers, Vikings over Packers, Texans over Jags, Commanders over Cardinals, 49ers over Patriots, Chiefs over Chargers, Raiders over Browns, and that was it. So, 8 of 16 selections, both giving us half a point each, which means We both moved to 2 points apiece after week 4. Side bet wise, Andy started off with a selection of the Cowboys to beat the Giants, 1 point. Steelers to beat the Colts. It didn't go down that way. It didn't get much better when he had the Rams to beat the Bears. Not ideal. But brought it back at the end with the Chiefs to beat the Chargers pick. So it gets him to 2 out of 4 points to move to 10 for the season. I had the Texans to beat the Jags, the 49ers to beat the Patriots, the Bengals to beat the Panthers, but then I had the Jets to beat the Broncos. So not the full boat for me, just 3 points, which also moves me to 10 for the season. So we're level pegging once again after 4 weeks. That is the week 4 games. But I believe, Mr. Cook, there are week 4 stats to go through.
So, as we know, I can only do so. And as Stuart's here, that means that I use all of my podcast powers to get a guest. I'm afraid to tell you that I have had to bench the stats mistress this week.
As in, like bench the stats mistress.
Yeah. But also from sportsmanlike conduct. So she is riding the bench this week. And that can only mean one thing. Yes, we have entered what's going to be known as the Wild West period of the podcast because this guy had to go out and get some stats. And I'm not used to it. So I swear I have done my best. And honestly, I feel points for doing your best is always a thing, even if you do it really badly. But I tried. I really did. And so far, neither of my co-host or guest have gone, these are flipping wrong. So, fingers crossed. Let's give this one a try. So these are the stats for week 4. Ultimately, the credit goes to Nate Davis of USA Today. And I was in the bathroom earlier and I was like, is it too early to go with Stats Master? Something to ponder on.
Maybe let the people decide.
Yeah, this is it. Something to just, mull like a fine wine, just a maybe. Number 1. Are the Minnesota Vikings the number 1 team in the NFC? I was very tempted to give this to somebody else to talk through.
I can't imagine who you're thinking.
Their record suggests as much. After they became the conference first 4-0 team. The Seattle Seahawks could match it by beating the Detroit Lions on Monday night after beating the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field 31-29 on Sunday afternoon. Vikes last started 4-0 8 years ago. So that squad finished 8-8 and missed the playoffs. In my co-host's phone, I would go with Vikes are gonna Vike with that stat right there. Number 2, what a Sunday night performance by Baltimore Ravens running back Derrick Henry, who rushed for 100 and a touchdown in a 35-10 walkover against the previously unbeaten. Number 3. 3 teams entered week 4 winless. An ominous harbinger as only 6 0-3 teams since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger have recovered to reach postseason. Cincinnati Bengals got off the mat Sunday against Carolina Panthers, and Tennessee will try to do the same at Miami. It does feel a little bit like a if your team's struggling, hope that next week you're playing the Panthers. At least you're going to get one win under your belt. Number 4. As for the still winless Jacksonville Jaguars, during the Super Bowl era, since 1966, only one of 164 0-4 clubs. Yeah, that's right. The 1992 San Diego Chargers has rebounded to make the playoffs. Woo woo! Not looking great. All 5 3-0 squads entered Week 4, played on the road. The Kansas City Chiefs and Vikings improved 4-0, while the Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers faltered. That is the end of my set of the stats. I'll hand you over to my co-host, who will bring you some, hopefully, not too terrible stats.
Yes, quite. So, 6 is the total number of touchdowns scored in the Indianapolis Colts' 27-24 defeat of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers scored 3 of the touchdowns, matching their season total entering the game, and surrendered 3 after their top-ranked defense had allowed 2 total in the first 3 weeks. The Washington Commanders, the number 1 team in the NFC East. Their record suggests as much after they became the division's first 3-1 team after throttling the Arizona Cardinals 42-14 in the desert. In a 6-day span, the Commanders piled up 2 road wins and 80 points. Sunday's outburst, their most in 8 years, back when Kirk Cousins was their quarterback in 2016. Just throwing it back to Minnesota. I haven't got a problem with Minnesota now that they've managed to cut off that diseased limb that was stopping them from...
sever that limb that was dragging them down like an animal.
just a bit. My next stat, Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey is apparently human. He missed his first field goal try of the season, which was beyond 50 yards, in Thursday night's win over the New York Giants after hitting the first 16 of his career. Amazingly, Aubrey's conversion rate from 50-plus of 94.1% is better than his accuracy from 30 to 39 yards of 87.5%. So he clearly just needed to be a challenge for him to be able to nail it. So
we've got a 30-yarder. Are you ready for this? I'm not going out.
Take the yardage penalty. Take the yardage penalty. I've got it.
Yeah, that's the thing. When it gets to the point where he's too close, it's just get him to keep false starting so you can back it up to like the 60-yard line. It's like perfect, lads. Staying with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott has not dropped a game to the Giants since they swept the Cowboys during his rookie year in 2016. I think I don't know if I might have made this up, but I think during the broadcast on Thursday they might have showed up like a stat of what the team is with the current like longest streak against oppositions, and I think he is leading. So it was like they've won all 8, I think, since then. Might even be more than that, but obviously they've won every single meeting they've had since 2016. So I think that's the longest streak of a quarterback against an opponent that's currently active. After entering Sunday with 8 catches for 69 yards on the season as a whole, perennial Chiefs Pro Bowl tight end Travis Kelce heated up for 7 grabs and 89 yards, both team highs, in Kansas City's 17-10 defeat of, as we said before, Stu's Los Angeles Chargers. And my final stat, of course, Atlanta does not win without Younghoe Koo's 58-yard field goal in the waning seconds, both the longest of the veteran kicker's 7-year career and the longest in the 8-season history of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Over to you, Mr. Woodmansey.
Yeah, I remember I was watching that as it went over, and the commentator going absolutely bonkers as well. It was seemingly quite a good game, that. So I have the Chicago Bears running back DeAndre Swift entered Sunday with 114 total yards from scrimmage, averaging just 2.7 yards per touch. But in a 24-18 defeat of the Rams, he racked up 165 yards and a touchdown whilst averaging 7.2 yards per touch. Another rookie passer, the Denver Broncos' Bo Nix, notched his first career touchdown throw, an 8-yarder to wide receiver Cortland Sutton that proved pivotal in a 10-9 upset of the New York Jets. It's like from a great game that you just talked about to possibly the worst game of the weekend from the bits I'd seen. It's basically qualified as the bare minimum to win in what was otherwise a struggle bus kind of a day in poor weather. Nix threw for -7 yards despite 7 completions before half-time and finished with 60 yards, albeit with 25 pass attempts. So basically, if you've got kids, they can probably throw further than he can, is the... Next one. Per Optastats, the Broncos are the first team in the Super Bowl era with 4 players to catch at least 1 pass, but not finish with positive yardage. I mean, what a lovely tag to hang on there, the franchise. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes continues doing things we've never seen, including the longest completion by air yards travelled per Next Gen Stats of his 8-year career in Sunday's victory. Doesn't give a figure on that, Mr. Cook. I'll call you on your stats bit there. We need a figure on that one next time.
It was 50 plus.
50 plus.
Yeah.
That'll be
So
the thing
collectively in one throw, he's thrown what 80% of what the Broncos did by the end of the game.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so sticking with Mahomes though, he is now 13-12 in games in which Kansas City trailed by double digits. The only quarterback in Super Bowl era to above 500, given such circumstances. Now with 100.
Oh, sorry. Just finished off. I'll come back to it.
Now, with 100 regular season starts under his belt, Mahomes is an unprecedented 78-22, with 29,328 yards and 225 touchdowns passing, all league records to this point of a player's career.
So, I believe the stat they brought up in the broadcast was that in every game that he's been down by exactly 10 points, he's won every game, including twice in the Super Bowl. So, basically, the point is, if you're going to get up on the Chiefs, make sure it's by 11 points or more.
I suppose that's quite, as a fan though, that might be quite reassuring in the sense of that's the ultimate like don't panic thing.
Yeah.
Like if your team's behind by more than
well,
a score,
I can't remember if it was. Well, that's the thing. It got to the point where it was almost as if they had to sort of give teams a couple of touchdowns to get started. I think there was one season when they were in the postseason. I think it was against the Texans, and I think they were 21-0 down within the first quarter, and then by half time it was like 28-21 or something like that. So it was almost as if the games were too easy for him, and he was like challenging himself to be absolutely screwed before they were sort of like starting the game. But yeah,
well,
crazy stuff.
The last thing on the docket isn't necessarily a yardage or touchdowns based statistic, but it is a nice one. So some kudos to the NFC South brethren, the Buccaneers, the Falcons, and the Panthers, who have pledged a combined $6 million at least between them to relief efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, which ravaged Florida's Gulf Coast and the Carolinas along its destructive track whilst causing dozens of fatalities. Sunday, the league also promoted the Red Cross on the homepage of its website, giving fans the ability to donate. So if that floats your boat, then obviously consider it. So yeah, that's a nice one to finish.
That is one of the things that I think the NFL does get right the most, is the sort of the charities and the organisations that they organise the sort of the giving to and stuff like that.
Well, it's like when I know that they go nuts with the merch, but it's the Americans. That's what happens. But like the whole stuff about the crucial catch thing at the moment, and like all the other stuff that they do throughout the season, and the fact that they give an award, don't they, to the like humanitarian players at the end of the league as well, and all the rest of it. You don't get them over here in the Premier League going, all right, Haaland, you banged in 40 odd goals this season. How many children or little old lady do you help to cross the street this season? Oh, that's none. Right, well, we're taking your Premier League trophy away now. Sorry. Like it's a different level. The clubs do stuff obviously, but like it's nice that it's celebrated because I think the more it's in the public eye, like they put it, the more likely are that people are kind of willing to participate in it themselves.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's something they do really, really well, and should definitely be celebrated.
And that's it.
So there we have it, the end of the stats. So that's week 4, nicely buttoned up, bowed on. Stick it in the drawer. Just we don't need to talk about it anymore. It's done. It's dusted. It's over. We'll move swiftly on to week 5, and as is always the case, myself, Mr. Cook, and this week's guest have made our selections for week 5 games. So 14 games in total, as we do, like I said before, we have started hitting the buys. The 4 teams that are on bye this week are the Detroit Lions, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Tennessee Titans. Don't want to say that I wasn't paying attention when I was drafting, but I have put myself into an absolute running back hellscape with the fact that 3 of my starting running backs are on bye this week, as they do have to fall between those 4 teams. So, god damn it. Like I said, we have got the picks. So we will go through those games, starting with the Thursday night football, once we come back from this very, very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So, as we said before the break, week 5, 14 games, the first of which, on the Thursday night football, sees the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Atlanta Falcons in a divisional matchup. Yes, for those of you watching on the podcast, Mr. Cook did do the Moe's Tavern beer glass in front of the mouth, so we can change the name of the team, so we can use this episode every year. And we have a difference of opinion. First up, ladies and gentlemen, 2 of us have gone for the Buccaneers. 1 of us has gone for the Falcons. Andy and Stu are in agreement that the Buccaneers, they think, will get the win here. I don't know. There's something weird about them. When the Falcons play in like prime time, they seem to be able to like pull a result out of their arse, unless they're playing the Chiefs. And then, by the sounds of it, they probably should have won that game, but the Chiefs got away with not getting a flag thrown on them. So,
whoa, that doesn't sound like the Chiefs. That's just conspiracy, Paul. You don't want to be getting into
that. Our second game of the week is the first of the London games this season, which sees the New York Jets taking on the Minnesota Vikings at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now, despite the Jets obviously having Aaron Rodgers in the building and starting at quarterback, we're all with the hot hand that is the Minnesota Vikings for this one. I think there was reports that came out after Sunday's game with the Jets that Rodgers was a little bit banged up, and he's officially listed as questionable for this one. Was that any in part of any of your thinking, or was it just a case of riding the hand that's hot, that's 4-0, so that?
My brain saw that fixture when the Jets are shit. They've got 4. That's it. That was my entire thought process. I didn't know about him being banged up, but that just makes it even better now.
Obviously, as a cynical man, I go, he's a bit banged up after the weekend. Is that because he's having to travel to a different country where it's cold and wet right now? Yeah, let's get the Vikings down for a win on this one, shall we?
Yeah, it makes the most sense. We move to the 6 p.m. slot, where we see the Carolina Panthers taking on the Chicago Bears. And surprise, surprise, we've all backed the Bears to go in there. Next up, we've got another divisional matchup where we see the Ravens traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Same again, 2 people have backed the Ravens and 1 person has backed the Bengals in this one. And some might say that I'm a fool as I have backed the Bengals. But hear me out. This is the exact sort of game that the Bengals will win because they've been awful all season, yet they'll turn it on against the team that's probably going to win the division.
I could agree with all of that.
But
my fear all season has been the same when it comes to the Bengals. I've said it time and time again. I feel as a team they were decimated in the off season. There was a lot of shipping out X number of players, and I imagine in 5 weeks' time I'm going to be saying the phrase, "There's definitely something wrong in Cincinnati." Something feels wrong already, but I agree with what you've said. This is absolutely the game that they should turn it on, win it, and then be like, we're back, and go on to actually start winning games. So I'm with you, but I did have to pick the Ravens.
Is it anything to do with the fact that they've got Jody Burrows under centre?
Oh, the haircut does not make us the man, unfortunately.
It'd be awesome if he's got if he takes all his pads and stuff off and he's just got Nightmare tattooed across his left pec or whatever it is.
The only time he thinks he sees Nightmare is when it comes up 4th quarter on the scoreboard. It's like you're already down, pal.
Obviously, I was a big sort of supporter of Joe Burrows for throughout his career up to sort of this season. I do wonder whether a particular contract may have affected his play style, and I'd love to see a stat on his win percentage since signing that contract, but that's a different conversation.
We'll move on. Next up, we've got arguably tasty pick for game of the week. We've got the Bills traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. Andy's backing the Bills to bounce back in this one, whereas myself and Stu have taken the Texans. This one, yeah, I think this one should be pretty tasty. If the Bills perform anywhere like they did against the Ravens, they'll probably get turned over again. But you'd like to think the Bills have enough about them where they won't put together back-to-back games like that.
So this is my thing for the Bills, and the reason I picked them is the Bills have to keep that win going. They've got to keep the win moving forward. They've got to keep winning the games, because the moment they go, we lost a game, everyone's like, here we go with the fucking Bills again. They lose another game, they will get written off for the entire season. It'll just be like, oh, well, it's just a fucking Bills. That'll be the end of it. So they need that win to go, last week, just a little bit of a blip. Everything's fine. Things normal. Don't need to worry. Don't write us off. 2 losses, however, that's it. They're done for the season. So I think a lot of focus coming for that, getting that win. But who knows?
Next up, we have another divisional matchup where we've got the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Jacksonville to take on Jaguars. Same again, 2 people have gone for the Colts, and Captain Optimism over here has gone for the Jags.
You're using that same premise again, aren't you? If they've got to win at one point,
yeah,
they're just shit.
They have to. Also, I know the Colts beat the Steelers at the weekend, but surely Joe Flacco can't just keep like pulling miracles out of his ass.
Now, this is
There
where
it
we get
is.
to. Yeah, here he
There it
goes.
is. Because there are certain things in life that are truly set in stone. Death, taxes, Christmas in July, and Paul never picking a by his favourite quarterback, Joe Flacco.
I'm pretty sure there also is. I'm sure if we go back to the stats and stuff like that, I don't think the Colts have got a great record against the Jags. They seem to be a bit of their kryptonite at times. So that was the only other thing I was putting behind my reasoning for picking them.
To me, the Jags are weird this season. 4 losses. That's just weird. And again, like what I was saying about the Bills, we're 4 weeks in, we're 4 losses in, and everyone's like, fucking Jags, back to normal. Just the Jags being the Jags. Okay, so go back to the last 4 seasons and go, they've looked really good. They improved season on season. They were getting to that position where they were looking, a surefire for playoffs and things like that. And everyone's like, fuck me, the Jags are actually good. This season, again, there's a lot of something's wrong with Jacksonville. And as with all of these situations, we're all looking for the head spot. Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence brought that team back to where it was. I think we're not in a position to be writing him off at this point in time. But 4 losses has to come from somewhere. So
next up, we have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Washington Commanders. No, we don't. We have the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. Consensus picks here. We've all gone for the Dolphins. No real sort of surprises as to why. Next up, it is the Browns at the Washington Commanders, and probably not surprisingly, given how well the Commanders are playing at the moment, we've all gone with the Commanders. Next game is another one we have a difference of opinion on. So it's another divisional game, and it's the Raiders at the Broncos. Now, I've gone for the home team here, whereas Stu and Andy have both picked the Raiders. Is that because Bo Nix threw for a box of eggs or something like that in his last game?
It's because the majority of my intake is via Red Zone. I felt a little bit cheated last week by the amount of time they actually spent on a game that finished 10-9. It was like no. So it was more of a case of I didn't want to see anything that the Broncos were involved in for a while, so they'll lose.
Interesting. I've taken the Broncos because they're at home, and the Raiders are very up and down. So
mile high, baby, isn't it? I think for me, I've always had a soft spot for the Broncos. I've always wanted to see them do well. I think it's too early to be saying, oh, look at the Broncos, look how good they are this season. I'd hope to see them do well. Mile high, etc., etc. I feel the Raiders are a touch more established. And I'm not going to lie on this one. I'm going to hold my hand up. When I looked at picking the teams, there was a very close percentage on this one, but it tipped to the Raiders. I think it was like 52 to 48. And I was like, I don't want that to be a factor, but it's a factor.
Fair enough. Next up, we have another divisional game. So it seems to be quite a lot of divisional games coming up this weekend. But it's the Cardinals and the 49ers, and we've all gone with the 49ers. After that, we've got the Packers at the Rams, and we've all taken the Packers. We've got the Giants at the Seahawks, and we've all taken the Seahawks. We get into the Sunday night game, which sees the Dallas Cowboys travelling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Myself and Stu have gone with the Cowboys on this one. Andy's taken the Steelers. Is that just because you despise Dak Prescott, or you think that the Steelers are better at home?
It's not. I made this pick / decision on the Steelers, not on the Cowboys. I think Steelers at home, that freaking defense, man, that Steelers defense. Oh my God, they are super good. And I'd like to see, games I've won on defense, but they are really. So those were the two factors I went with: that home field advantage and that Steelers defense. Normally, in 9 out of 10 situations, as we've discussed before, you will find me picking the Cowboys in any game up to the playoffs. However, this ain't the playoffs, and Steelers at home.
I love how that you had to build that up to just make sure that the shot landed extra hard at the end.
I don't know what you're talking about, Stu.
And our final game of the week on the Monday Night Football, which there is just one this week, sees the New Orleans Saints travelling to Kansas City to inevitably take their whipping off the Kansas City Chiefs. Surprise, surprise, we've all backed the Chiefs in that one. So, 14 games, done and dusted. The bye for the Lions, Chargers, Eagles and Titans, done. That just leaves us with myself and Mr. Cook to pick 4 teams apiece in the side bet. Now, obviously, I technically won last week with my 3 selections over Andy's 2 selections. So it does put Andy in as having the option to either go first or to have me select first. So I will defer to you, Mr. Cook, as to what you would like to do.
Once my thing loads, here it comes. I will take a first pick because going through those games that we've just gone through, there was a game I went, ooh, and I'm pretty sure it's a little further down the list. Come on, anytime, any minute now. Here we go. I will take the Seattle Seahawks to hopefully decimate the 1-3 New York Giants. Obviously, I do like to pretend at times that the Seahawks are what I like to call sneaky good. They fly under the radar, and just win games here, there, and everywhere. Fingers crossed on that one. Seahawks to beat the Giants, please.
Solid first pick. I will counter that. I'll go for the Bears at home to the Panthers, which, as I'm now saying it, feels like it might be a bit of a risk. But you got to take risks. Ain't nothing for complacency in this game. My second selection, I'll go for the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the New Orleans Saints, which, Mr. Cook, puts you back in charge. Your next 2 selections, please.
Well, potentially a risky pick, but 3-1 versus 1-3 might spell Commanders to beat the Browns. Let's find out together.
Yep.
Yeah, now we're getting into the weeds. There's one I want to go with, and I'm like, that if there's a game that's going to bite me, it's going to be that one. Okay, let's roll this dice. The Minnesota Vikings to travel to the UK and take care of business with Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets.
Thought about that one, and then thought UK game risky.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That leaves me with my last two selections. So I'll start off by taking the San Francisco 49ers for the second week in a row. This is personal growth for me, ladies and gentlemen.
I think we should frame this podcast personally. What is happening? What's happening right now?
It is weird. Granted, it is weird.
If you pick Leeds on a football podcast in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you're in trouble.
Luckily,
that really will be like the sign. We're going to send for help.
Luckily, we don't do this sort of thing on the football podcast, so I don't have to worry about that. See, part of me really, really, really wants to take the Dolphins.
That's the one I'm looking at. I'm like, on paper and statistically, it is a surefire thing. There is one key problem with that.
The problem is, they're in New England. It's a divisional game, and you can't look over. You can't sort of look past the fact they've just lost at home to the Titans.
Yep, I'm with you.
In that case, I'm going to have to roll the dice. I'm going to go with the Packers at the Rams.
Oh, you cheeky monkey! Because that's the one. That's the other one I was looking at.
Which leaves you with the rest of them to sift through to pick your fourth selection.
The problem I've got is that a couple of the games I'm looking at go against the grain. So there's a game that I really want to pick, but I know both of you are like, that's not. So I'm a bit like, that shouldn't weigh. Obviously, the Dolphins. There's that weird thing that the Patriots, even in the Brady era, could not. I think there was the season when the Dolphins lost every game apart from the 2 times they played the Patriots. So it was like, however, 3-1 is calling me, I'm afraid. So I will take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take care of business against the Atlanta Falcons. Like I say, I know it goes against what the majority of the podcast things, but like I can't ignore 3-1. So
no. Contraire. Mr. Woodmansey has taken the Buccaneers.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, just
so I am the majority.
So, to clarify, Andy's 4 selections are the Seattle Seahawks at home to the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders at home to the Cleveland Browns, the Minnesota Vikings, and I say this in huge inverted commas, at home to the New York Jets, even though they're about 5,000 miles away from home, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Whereas I have the Chicago Bears at home to the Carolina Panthers, the Kansas City Chiefs at home to the New Orleans Saints, the San Francisco 49ers at home to the Arizona Cardinals, and the Green Bay Packers on the road against the LA Rams. Stu, if someone had given you a crisp £5 note and you were asked to put that £5 note against either one of those 4 team selections, which would you think you would have the best shot of winning money from that crisp £5 note?
I think between you both, there's probably one each that I'd be worried about. It's not that I disagree, it's that I'd be worried about. But I think, even though the record's not great, I'd probably be more worried about. And again, I've taken the Packers on the pick, but I think purely for the fact that the Rams are at home, I feel like there's a bit of a banana skin there. So, was it yourself that had picked the Packers, or was it Andy?
Yeah, I'd put it back. So you think Andy's potentially
I
just a
think
little bit more?
I think he's more likely, because that game is more of a concern to me than some of the others that you've picked.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't disagree. Like, we've had this the last couple of weeks where the games are, well, maybe not a 50-50 shot. It's probably like 60-40 on some of them games, and it's like very, very narrow favourites. I imagine the money line.
This week there is more of a feel of 50-50 picking. There's like a lot of 52-48 on the percentage picks and stuff, and it's like,
I suppose you've had it thinned out a bit with the buys and stuff though as well, and then for the fact that you've ended up with that Bills Texans game chucked into the mix, that's like taking another one away to me. So
yeah, true. I suppose as well, I think for the majority of those games, I imagine the sort of the handicap line is going to be, it's not going to be like when the Niners were up at, like, I think it was the Niners Patriots this week, where the Niners were like 10-point favourites or something like that. I think you're going to have at most a couple of these games going to be like 1.5 points either way and stuff like that. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end of yet another Laces Out podcast. Thank you, as always, to guest Mr. Stuart Woodmansey. Second appearance of the season, but a stellar outing nonetheless. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Nice.
Thank you, as always, to all of you people for listening and watching. Obviously, if you're new here, if this is your first time listening or watching to the podcast, maybe think about having a little subscribe to the channel if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening on your different podcast devices, obviously, subscribe to the channel. Then your feed will be automatically updated with all of the different offerings we have here at the channel. We have obviously not just the NFL podcast. We have the aforementioned football podcast that comes out each week. We have the wrestling podcast that's out once a month, in line with all the premium live events that are taking place across the country. We have, of course, the Formula One podcast that comes out in line with the races, and then, of course, there's Mr. Cook's Darkest Timeline podcast, where he just spews forth all of the thoughts and goings on inside that noggin of his. So, yes, if you do, like, share, subscribe. We will be back in about 7 days' time, where we'll break down week 5's goings on and look forward to week 6. Is the second of the UK games next week?
They usually do go. There's usually like 2 and then like a break and then another one.
Yeah.
I think it's like that this time around. I'll probably be wrong.
So week 6, let's have a quick. We'll just do a quick brief. Well, I'm seeing the name Jacksonville, so I think you can almost guarantee that that's going to be a UK game. However, it is Jacksonville at the Chicago Bears, so I think it's going to be the same thing that they did last season, where they technically play a road game in the UK and then play their designated home game the week after. Let's have a look. Yeah. So the week after that, you've got New England at Jacksonville, which at Wembley Stadium. So the first of 3 UK games this week. Let's hope it's a good one. Join us again next week, where we'll go through the Jets-Vikings game and look ahead to week 6. But for us now, it's tatty bye. Take care of yourselves, look after each other, and we'll see you in a week's time. Bye.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another one gone. Big thank you to Stu for joining us. Big thank you to my co-host for co-hosting with me, and a big thank you to you for watching or listening or however you're ingesting this podcast. Before you go, if you're feeling generous, you could like, share, subscribe and comment, leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. That way you can click that email button, it'll auto-populate an email, and you can just send us your picks for the week. Do the same or better than us, win a prize. I'll send it to you in the post. Right, that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to CookieCast. Please make sure to like, share and subscribe.